You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Bobby Heenan's former sidekick, Jamison Winger. Check him out on Facebook at Jamison, former WWF. He's a great guy, and so we want to present this episode to you. There's a few things that we talk about in this episode that are kind of interesting. At the end of the episode, we talk about how WWE can fix their cruiserweight division, and since we recorded the episode, they have done some things to fix the cruiserweight division. So if you hear us talking about it and we don't mention the 205 Live, that's because it hadn't happened when recorded. Well, we appreciate you coming and check us out. This is the premiere episode. As I said, I am the Bearded Wonder, Zane Paisley. We wanted to present some fun, exciting things about pro wrestling, but we are nerds at heart. I'm nerdy about a lot of different things, but the main thing is pro wrestling. I've been a fan since I was a child, and been to a lot of live events, and I'm currently a ring announcer for quite a few promotions in the central Indiana area. And joining me today is our other host, the awesome wrestler from the Mid-Atlantic, the incredible Huck, Will Huckabee. How are you doing tonight, Huck?
I'm doing great, man. And I'm a wrestling nerd because like most wrestling nerds, I grew up watching wrestling, and now I'm fortunate enough to be a professional wrestler. And even though I put on tights and lace up boots every week and stuff, day in and day out, I still enjoy watching wrestling as much as I did when I was 7 years old. So I'm a wrestling nerd for life.
Awesome. And joining us tonight as our guest co-host for the evening from WrestlePro, and he trains at Creative Pro Wrestling in New Jersey. We've got the abominable CPA. How are you doing tonight, CPA?
I'm good. I'm just sort of watching the Indians game. I've been a wrestling fan since I think I was probably 6 or 7. I think the first wrestling that I watched was a Papa Shango vignette, and I've been hooked ever since. And now I don't put on tights, but I put on slacks and a button-down shirt and wrestle every weekend.
Well, and you've also had a pretty nerdy moment when WWE Hall of Famer dressed up like you, and you got to be in a tag team with him. Can you tell our listeners about that?
And what was it, last April 2015, I had the privilege of teaming up with living legend Larry Zbyszko, or as I dubbed him, the Living Ledger, in what I believe might have been his last wrestling match. And I used that loosely because he did literally nothing the whole match, but it was still a lot of fun.
That's awesome. All right, so we are having a very nice first guest with us this evening. Later on, we're going to be talking to the co-host of the Bobby Heenan Show, the one and only Jamison Winger. But right now, we are going to be putting down those green circles, doing a little dancing. We've got the 3 count, the top 3 questions of the week. So, Huckabee, number 1. Have you heard the news about TNA?
Oh, yes, I had. The fact that Billy Corgan lost his lawsuit against TNA really makes me wonder what's the future going to hold for not only him but for the company.
Well, that's a great question. So he did lose his lawsuit against TNA, but the court's decision, it kind of ends up that Dixie Carter is only going to have about 5% interest in TNA, and a couple other companies that have been helping them out are going to be taking majority control. I'm pulling it up right now. The results of that, it looks like 85% of the company is going to the Anthem Media, which owns Fight Network in Canada. Per their agreement, and 10% is going to Aerolux, which is the production company, and so that leaves about 5% to Dixie Carter. So what do you think is going to happen in TNA very closely there, Huck?
You know, I really think that we're going to see a shift in not only how TNA is going, how they're going to go storyline-wise, but also as far as business-wise. I think that now that they're owned by a legitimate company who's really worried about the bottom line, they're going to start making smart business decisions, not only about how often they run or where they run, but I think that we're going to see less, as far as production goes, the production is going to be a lot smaller.
Well, yeah, probably as a cost saving. What do you think about that, CPA? What do you think is going to be the future of TNA?
I would like to see it positively, but I'm a little worried that it's going to be similar to the AOL Time Warner merger with WCW. But I mean, I think if TNA can kind of start from the ground level again, maybe change their name. I don't know. Couldn't be the worst idea on earth. And just kind of focus on building a less confusing brand. I mean, I think they have something good with the, what is it, the Grand Championship now? I think they have something cool there. They just have to have the patience to kind of educate the fan base on if they're going to take a new direction with this. I think they could kind of class themselves out instead of just being kind of a lower level version of WWE, and I would dare say ROH at this point, because they've kind of fallen from grace over the past few years.
Well, I would agree with that. I think that they've got some good things going right now. With the Hardy Boys, with Broken Matt especially, I've been renewed my interest in TNA. Last couple of years, I haven't really been watching it. Now I watch it on a regular basis, and it's mainly due to the storylines with Broken Matt Hardy. So I'm happy that the judge made a decision so that they can move forward. Do you guys, Huck, do you think that we will ever see Dixie Carter on wrestling television again?
Of course. I think that even though she's a very small minority owner with 5%, from what I've read, doing my research and stuff, talking to a couple of friends, I think that the plan is for her to stay on air as kind of an on-air authority, kind of to keep the continuity of the show going on. Kind of like CPA, I really hope that they take this time to restructure the company, to rename the company. I don't know why Jeff Jarrett thought it would be a great idea to name his company TNA, but it doesn't scream professionalism. But get back to your question, Zane, I think that Dixie Carter is still going to be on TV. Luckily, she's not going to be making the business decisions, but she's going to still have a role, in the storylines and stuff.
I had heard that it was Vince Russo who actually came up with the TNA name, and that totally makes sense to me to believe that. CPA, what do you think? Do you think Dixie Carter will ever be on wrestling television again?
I would like to think not, unless they're gonna, unless they can maybe kind of sway it towards real life stuff, because I know that I'm sure a fair majority of the fan base is kind of tired of seeing her and hearing about her. So maybe they could kind of play sort of a Vicky Guerrero type thing with her. I don't know. That's the only plus side I see to her having an on-screen role.
That role would fit her. I don't know if she's got the chops to be able to pull it off, but even with Billy Corgan not being able to take control, I think he would have been the best for the company. But I am glad that the judge's ruling has not affected the TV tapings. Hopefully, between Anthem and Aerolux, they can do some more tapings before the end of their taping cycle finishes, and they can stay on the air, because they have been putting on some pretty fun shows lately, and we want them to be able to have a space open for the wrestlers out there in the world. So, all right, topic 2 in our 3 count. Hell in the Cell was headlined for the first time ever on a WWE major pay-per-view by 2 women. Sasha Banks and Charlotte battled for the Women's Championship, the Raw Women's Championship. CPA, do you think that is just a footnote in history, or do you think that is a big deal?
I hope it's a big deal, but the problem, not a problem, I guess the only concern I have with it is that they put a name to it, and I feel like it's been, Sasha and Bailey and Charlotte and all them have gotten over on their own merits, but I from the beginning I was just kind of worried that the fans would see it as the company telling them, "Oh, this is what you want," as opposed to people actually wanting it. So it seems to be going pretty well so far. I'm just worried about Sasha dying because every time she wrestles Charlotte, I feel like they kind of pick it up a few too many notches. I actually didn't watch the match yet specifically because I just wanted to make sure she was still alive at the end. But now that I know she's alive, I can watch it because their match at SummerSlam was horrifying at points. Not that it was bad; it was just a little scary sometimes.
Definitely scary. Will, what were your thoughts? Did you think that it was a big deal, or do you think it's just going to be a footnote in history?
I think it's a huge deal, the fact that that the ladies was the main event for Hell in a Cell. I think that is justification that these ladies are working hard. I think that it's also a shot at all the boys in the back, all the male wrestlers in the back, to say, hey, look, for too long you guys have taken advantage of the fact that these are just, female wrestlers and they're just eye candy, and you didn't take them serious. And I've said it before, then, we've had discussions where I've talked about how much I love women's wrestling and stuff. These ladies are super serious, and after watching that match, I've said it once and I'll say it again, the gentlemen in the back, have a lot to live up to and stuff. It wasn't, it wasn't no Mick Foley versus Undertaker or whatever, but it would not be remembered as the worst Hell in a Cell match ever.
Oh yeah, definitely not. I think it was a big deal, but I'm hoping that in a year or two from now, it's not a big deal. Hopefully we'll have more women's matches be headliners because what they're doing so far, they deserve it. They put on one heck of a match, and but my only concern, and I know CPA, you said that you haven't watched it yet. Do you mind if I spoil just one thing on there for you?
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, my problem with the internet has been that everyone has spoiled everything that's happened over the last 2 years for me. So at least you're being polite about it.
Well, towards the end of the match, they had a table set up in the corner, and Charlotte threw Sasha in it, did not break. Threw her into it again, did not break a second time, just decided to go for the pin instead of trying it for the third time. I always had this issue with AJ Lee. I think that Sasha and AJ Lee are both too light that they can't go through tables because they're not going to break them. And, it's hard for them to do effective bumping since they are so lightweight to really make a noise. Huck, do you agree with my assessment on that?
Oh, yeah, that it's a double-edged sword. These ladies, they want to be taken serious. They want to be able to do the same things that men can do. And, that's a double-edged sword is the fact that, like you said, like AJ Lee, Sasha is just so light that when you throw her into a table, it's not going to break. And kind of like how CPS said, you really start worrying for her health with her taking these big, huge, dangerous bumps, being as small as she is. Don't get me wrong, she's not a frail lady by any stretch of the imagination, but we all know the human body can only take so much punishment before it breaks. And you just get very worried and stuff that one of these table spots, whatever, is going to be the breaking point for her.
Yeah, CPA, I know that you are currently in training at Create a Pro, which is run by Pat Buck, and when he's not on the road with WWE, Kurt Hawkins. I know that you attend a lot of seminars. Is there anybody that the WWE can bring in to the Performance Center to teach these ladies how to effectively go through tables? Because even Charlotte's spot in Hell in a Cell, she just kind of drifted back into the table instead of jumping and really going through it. Is there anybody that you can recommend for that role?
Well, my thing is, why do you need tables by that point? You already have a giant piece of steel sitting around you. The hype of the match alone should have been enough that they didn't need to be putting people through tables. That's the other fascinating thing to me about the Performance Center is that they have all these guys who know everything about wrestling, and they have agents who could, put together a wrestling match in their sleep, but then you have guys and girls taking really reckless reckless chances in the ring sometimes. I know, like, wrestling, regardless, I mean, a headlock takeover can be reckless. I saw a guy tear his ACL doing a headlock takeover one time. But again, you don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to. You already have the fans there. You already have the hype behind it. Just have a match. You know what I mean? I don't mean to sound like an old timer on a wrestling podcast, but it's just, you don't need it. You know, they could have. I've seen Sasha in just regular matches with Bayley and Charlotte where they didn't use any weapons, they didn't do any crazy bumps or anything like that, and the match was fun. So you don't need a table. You know, you're not going to recreate Mick Foley stuff because you shouldn't. Mick Foley shouldn't have done all those things. You know what I mean? So, I just feel like it's kind of excessive to use a table when you already have the hype. This is almost 2 years of hype that they have going into this match now with just, you know, women taking over the company. So why, you know, you don't really need a table. I think you could just settle for a few near falls. That's it. You don't need a table.
All right. The grizzled vet with a hot take.
I tried not to come off that way.
No, I love it. What did you think about that take, Huck?
I think that he's right. I definitely agree with him in the fact that, you know, you look at Triple H and Undertaker's Hell in a Cell match. No big, huge bump off the top of the cage or whatever. Or even Chris Jericho and Triple H. No huge bumps off the top of the cage, but the sheer brutality of being in that cage was the storyline for the match. I think with, like CPA said, with them two being in the ring, they have this huge cage to work with and stuff. Use what you got. You don't have to go all out. You don't have to do what everybody else does. This was their chance to be creative, to do something different. And not saying that they weren't creative, not saying the match wasn't good because it was very good, but I felt that they came short on the mark when it came to being creative and not doing the same old spot that we've seen in those matches. Okay.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add about the Hell in a Cell women's match? All right.
I'll come back on after I watch it.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, our third topic for the evening on the Wrestling Nerdcast on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. We are recording this live to tape on November 1st, the day after Halloween. So what were your favorite Halloween moments in pro wrestling? I'll get us started. I loved the short video that John Cena and Nikki Bella put out where they were dressed as each other. I thought that was great. And I loved on Raw when the members of the New Day were all different Charles Wright gimmicks. Big E was Kama, the Ultimate Fighting Machine from Nation of Domination. Xavier Woods was Papa Shango. And Kofi Kingston was the Godfather. So I thought that was awesome. Will, did you have any highlights from wrestling and Halloween this past week?
First of all, if I never see John Cena dress up as Nikki Bella ever again, it will be too soon. That is a vision. There's a visual that will never get out of my head, and it will probably give me nightmares to the day I die.
Did it turn you on a little too much?
Say again?
Did it turn you on a little too much?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, way too much. Oh, Jesus Lord. Actually, I think besides, like you said, the New Day dressing up as different gimmicks of Charles Wright, aka the Godfather, Papa Shango, etc. Actually, my favorite moment came off of the Indies. Actually, the NWA North American Champion Tyson Dean took his son, his young, like 2-3-year-old son, trick-or-treating. And he dressed up as the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Had the custom-made robe, black with the feathers and stuff, and had his own little title belt and stuff. And there was actually a video of his son walking around doing the Ric Flair strut and trying to do an elbow. So that was definitely the highlight of my wrestling Halloween.
Excellent. What about you, CPA? Did you have any wrestling Halloween highlights?
Sorry, I'm stunned into silence right now. I'm watching the video of John Cena and Nikki Bella dressed up as each other. I actually, on Thursday night, I had a match at Creative Pro. It was a all costumes are legal match, and myself and my partner in crime, Kip Stevens, dressed up as Mario and Luigi.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
And I punched a hole through a brick, and I found the star, and I went crazy for about 30 seconds. Other noteworthy costumes in the match were Forrest Gump, a hot dog, an astronaut. My other partner Delroy was dressed up as B.A. Baracus from the A-Team. I don't remember the other. Oh, it was Johnny from Cobra Kai, I think, was also in the match. So yeah, that was noteworthy for me. I'll send you the video when it goes public. It was actually a lot of fun.
Did you yell "Sweep the leg, Johnny"?
No, he was on the other team, so I didn't yell any encouragement to him.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Way to keep it kayfabe. Good job. All right, here in just a few moments, we're going to have Jamison Winger as our main guest for the evening. But just real quick, CPA, how can people find you on the internet? What do you got coming up? You got any big shows coming up or anything like that?
I'm pretty much all platforms and CPA wrestles. Let me see. On November 18th, I think. Hold on, let me just double check that date before I say too much. Oh, November 17th, I'll be at Hicksville, New York for Creative Pro Wrestling. November 19th and 20th, Wrestle Pro will be running in New Jersey. On the 19th, we'll be in Raleigh. On the 20th, we'll be making our debut in Newark. You can go to WrestleProOnline.com for further details.
Excellent, excellent. What about you, William Huckabee? How can people find you on the internet? What do you got coming up? Huck, you on?
Yes, I'm on. I hit the wrong button on my mic because I'm such an idiot. Yeah, find me on Facebook, at William Huckabee. On Twitter, it's at W.A. Huckabee. Instagram, it's William Huckabee. I'm even trying to upload a lot of content and stuff on my YouTube page. Once again, it's William Huckabee. So, coming up this weekend, this is the 5th. I'll be in West Virginia, Princeton, West Virginia, WVCW, defending my WVCW heavyweight title. November 12th, I'll be at SWAC in Concord, North Carolina, defending, my newly won World Wrestling Grand Prix championship that I won up in New Jersey and stuff at the Jimmy Clydesdale Memorial Tournament. And then on the 13th, I'll be up in New Andover, Massachusetts, flying through, driving through, CPH territory and stuff for Beyond Wrestling. So that's basically huge stuff I got coming up.
Just as a sidebar, Sean Donovan put you over big time. I think you guys worked in that Clydesdale tournament.
Yes. I actually defeated him in the first round of the Jimmy Clydesdale tournament. Great guy, man. I've got to say, if Zane can give me a few seconds, awesome locker room. Everybody was very inviting. It was my first time ever wrestling in New Jersey, and a lot of guys were very, very welcoming and stuff. But Sean Donovan is a phenomenal guy to work with, man. Very easy to get along with and stuff. And we had a really good match. I can't wait until the matches are made public and stuff so people can see how good he really is, man. I think we had a really great match.
Did he hit you with the Paul Orndorff elbow drop?
Of course he did.
Well, and you guys were recently were you on a tryout together? CPA?
Yeah, it was in February, I think. It was for Marvelous Pro Wrestling, some Japanese wrestling company.
Yeah, it was February because it was so cold, man.
Yeah.
Like that was like and I talked to a friend of mine, one of the guys we rode up to New York with, said that was the coldest it had been in New York without snow in like 15 years. It was like -6 degrees. It was like -15 degrees without the wind chill.
All right. Well, I will be at Intense Championship Wrestling this coming Saturday, which is the 5th, I believe, and it is in Marion, Indiana. I'll be ring announcing there, and then we are taking next week off from the Wrestling Nerdcast maybe having the best of the Wrestling Nerdcast fill in. And because of the presidential election here in the U.S., and so the following Saturday, the 12th, I will be in Shelbyville, Indiana for All-Star Pro Wrestling, ring announcing for them. So it should be a couple great nights, and I will be the first to announce defending his championship, the new All-Star Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion, Drew Skills. So it should be a fun night. If you're in the Indiana area, stop by Marion this coming Saturday night, and then the following Saturday night coming out to Shelbyville. All right. Producer, Killer Kev, can you please ring up our first guest?
Hello.
Hello, this is Zane from the Wrestling Nerdcast. Is this Jamison?
It is Zane. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Do you prefer that we call you Jamison or John?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I've been called a lot worse than either one of those names.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm Zane, and also on the line, we've got Will Huckabee, who is a wrestler in the Mid-Atlantic area, and we've also got the Abominable CPA, who's a wrestler in the New York, New Jersey area. But before you say hello to them, I'm gonna give you a proper introduction, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, our first guest ever on the Wrestling Nerdcast, and how appropriate is this? We've got the co-host of the Bobby Heenan Show and former manager of the Bushwhackers, none other than Jamison Winger. Jamison, how are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are just doing fantastic. I know our time is short with you. We've had you on a previous podcast called the Undisputed Wrestling Show, so we've heard a lot from you. But just for our fans who haven't heard in the past, how did you get started with WWF, and how did Vince McMahon spot you?
I was actually playing Jamison in a murder mystery, and Vince McMahon happened to be at the show and thought that my improv skills would be compatible with Bobby Heenan, and they were looking for a co-host for his new show, and the rest is history.
Well, and, when you first got onto set, when they were rolling, you and Bobby hadn't discussed doing any bits beforehand, correct?
Correct. We, actually, Vince was at the show on a Saturday night, and that Monday morning, they had me come to the studio in character. Don't let, Bobby, don't break character for Bobby. Let's see if he really thinks you're this crazy nerd. And let's see how you guys get along. And so we were kind of going at it before the cameras were rolling, and it was good. I mean, it happened pretty quickly where we were able to work off of each other, set each other up, and it was really good. It was I was doing stand-up at the time, so used to working in front of crowds on my feet, so to speak, with without rehearsal and being able to react to hecklers and all that. So I had pretty good training for what they were looking for, and it really came together pretty fast. Bobby and I had a great time, feeding off of each other, and I broke him a lot, which was great. He's one of the great things. He would always say to me, wow, I can't, they would have to retake certain stuff because I would crack him up, and we were supposed to hate each other. So it was nice. It was a great relationship, great working relationship.
Well, that's excellent. I definitely have more questions for you, but I'm going to pass it off to New York, New Jersey area, great pro wrestler named the Abominable CPA. And if you haven't seen this guy, Jamison, you need to check him out. You would love his...
All right. I need to do that
then. How's it going, Jamison?
All right, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm probably a little too excited to be having this discussion right now, just because this is kind of one of those inexplicable little kid moments right now. So I guess I could think of a million questions, but the first one I have is, was there? Can you explain the oinkets? I guess is the most the most light way I could put it.
That's an awesome question. I think they were real life sisters. They were looking for kind of like crazy guests every week, and somebody had the great idea. Let's put them on the show, and they're the Rosati sisters, and so we'll call them the Oinkettes. They come out in swimsuits every week, and it was kind of funny. They were really good sports, big wrestling fans, and they were. Bobby was just great with them. He just had some of the funniest lines I've ever heard working with them. And then when Primetime wasn't, the Bobby Heenan show went off, and they went back to the 2-hour format for Primetime, they were always in the studio audience, so Bobby could always come up with some new lines every week for them, and it was good. It was great. They were great sports. I don't know how to explain them other than to say they were just really, fun-loving, really, really loyal wrestling fans who enjoyed being on TV, even if it meant they had to take Bobby's abuse. Good girls.
That's awesome. Did you have a particular product in your hair when you went out there? Because your hair looked very.
It was the cheapest
gel
tight. I could find. Yeah, it was whatever was on sale, and I would use. My God, I would use a ton of it. But it was great. I was always surprised by. If we were doing like a live event, I would, get whatever my bit was for that show done, and I literally would just take a shower, and put my normal clothes on, and I could go out and sit in the audience, and nobody recognized me. Because my hair was pretty long, and it just, if I washed the gel out, it just amazing how a hairstyle could change a person, and posture. The hunchback worked beautifully. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great years.
I guess as kind of my, I don't want to take up too much time. I want everyone else to get in. I read Bobby Heenan's first book, and I've watched a bunch of kind of candid interviews with him. Did Bobby pull any weird pranks or ribs, as it were, on you at any point?
I don't recall any specific, on the show, it was almost everything he said was a prank because it was unexpected. And we purposely, didn't set anything up beforehand. And, but, just about everything he said was, would catch you off guard. He was just so bright and witty. And every time you thought you got the upper hand, he'd always come back with a winner. I can't think of any pranks, so to speak. And the other thing was, he was a very respectful guy, and off stage, there was a lot of mutual respect. I wasn't one of the guys, so to speak. I wasn't a wrestler. I wasn't coming out of a wrestling background. I was a comedian and an actor, and he, I think, held actors in a certain regard, where I think he was, respected the fact that I was somewhat trained in my profession, and I think he was probably a little bit uncomfortable to keep that kind of relationship up when the cameras weren't rolling. So I don't remember any time him, doing. And he wasn't a mean-spirited guy. Like when the cameras weren't rolling, he was just a warm and fuzzy guy. He still is. I think he had a birthday yesterday.
Actually, it's today. Today is his 71st birthday.
Oh, it's today. Oh, yeah, right. It's today. Yeah. Good guy, great guy. Can't think of anything he did to. He was that way to everybody, though. He was a very respectful guy. He totally got that anything is fair game. when the cameras were rolling, but off camera he was just a gentleman.
All right. Well, thank you, CPA. If you have any other questions, just let us know. I'm going to kick it over now to the Mid-Atlantic wrestler, vet in the business, great podcaster. I don't know what else I can do to pump him up. The Huck, William Huckabee.
Thank you, Zane. Thank you, Zane. First of all, Mr. Jamison, thank you for being a guest on our show. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, really.
My first question, because I'm a professional wrestler, I'm one of the boys, and so I want to ask this question. Coming from, comedy and stand-up and being, in improv, and of course I've done my research and stuff, and you weren't really doing a lot of improv when you first started, or when you first got the job with WWE and stuff, when Vince first seen you. How was you received by the boys in the locker room? How did the rest of the wrestlers and stuff in the back react to having you around?
I think a lot of them were really great. A lot of them were very supportive. I think one of the things at the WWE I noticed was that, everybody was a little bit on edge, wanted to be made, and when they were on prime time, I was kind of like, there wasn't a lot of pressure on me. I knew Vince really liked me. He would turn beet red. I would make him laugh so hard. And all the guys, I think, I don't know, I think it really depended on the personality of the wrestler. Some guys that were really funny that, I think about Mr. Perfect all the time. He was such a funny guy off camera and on camera. And, we had a good rapport, off camera and on camera. The Bushwhackers, same way. They, I think, appreciated what I did and anything to, pump up the ratings. And, but there were guys, there was definitely some resentment. I remember, like the Nasty Boys, I don't think they thought much of me. Pat Patterson, who was he was like Vince's in those days. He was Vince's right-hand man. I don't know about anymore. But he was just like, what the fuck is this guy doing here? He was, very old school and I just don't think he saw a place for me. And most guys would go to Pat to say, what am I doing today? Or what's going on? And Pat would see me and he was like turn the other way, go talk to Vince. It was that kind of thing. But I was like, I have my contract and I know I'd have to be there a certain amount of days, but I was doing other things too. I was trying to make my name as an actor. And so I didn't feel that like I was already on the show every Monday night. So it wasn't like I was fighting to, really impress anybody or, so I kind of remained, some guys didn't even know it was me in the dressing room. There were some guys that just didn't, but a lot of them came up to me and told me, what a great job I was doing and how funny I was. $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, great guy. We worked together a lot. He was really nice, and Sensational Sherry were very supportive, and Mean Gene Okerlund, loved that guy. He was great. I think like he felt like he had another whole avenue to go on the live broadcast. With the live tapings, with his humor, attacking Jamison, and it was good. Some guys appreciated me, and I know some guys didn't really have a clue why I was there.
Okay, well, my next question is, coming from the acting, improv, comedian world and stuff, and I'm going to assume because, you live in the New York area and stuff, growing up you was a huge wrestling fan. When you got into the business, was it everything that you expected? Were there some things that you were surprised about? Were there some things that you kind of knew, okay, well, I already knew this was going on anyway? What was your first impression when you actually went to the studio and stuff and started working for Vince?
Well, it was, again, this was like a year into me leaving Wall Street and trying my hand at comedy and acting literally within that first year. So I didn't have a lot to compare it to. It was kind of my first job in television. And, it was just, everything was top of the line. I mean, the catering, the dressing rooms, the the employees were, you know, I mean, like writers and stuff. And like, my son is on a show now on CBS, and everybody's very casual, but like all the writers and producers, they wore business suits. The girls were all like dressed in, you know, it was like very, very much a business atmosphere with a dress code, and it was great. I mean, Vince didn't spare a lot of money. He let's put it this way. He spent money on the people he thought were helping him, and it showed in the accommodations, and you know, just when we were traveling, you know, you could stay wherever you wanted and just submit your receipts. It was good. It was top notch. It really was. Very professional. The sound, the equipment, the editing room. I mean, it was all very well done, very professional. But you had a lot of retired wrestlers too that Vince kept on the payroll, so there'd be a lot of horsing around, and you know, it was like sometimes like just a bunch of big kids, no matter how old we were, horsing around. So it was good. It was, for me, it was a very relaxed atmosphere. I never felt, you know, my job depended on this performance, or they were really, really good to me, right? You know, from top to bottom.
All right. My last question, since we're talking about payroll and stuff, before I pass it to our main host, Jane, is you got an opportunity, you know, there was an offer for you to go, come down south where I live at stuff and work for WCW, and basically rehash the role of Jamison, and you turned it down. I do believe at the time you had a play that was off Broadway and everything, and you wanted to stay close to New York. We all know in the wrestling business at that time that Ted Turner was bleeding money, was basically sparing no expense to bring in talent, especially former WWE talent. 2020 hindsight being what it is, do you think, knowing now, if you knew then what you know now, would you have signed to WCW and got one of those big, huge contracts that they were giving out?
You know, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of pressure for me to, when my contract was up, for me to, you know, re-sign, and it started to become a real commitment for me. When Raw replaced Primetime, there was no longer anything shot at the studio. And for me, it was an ideal job. I went in once every 3 weeks. So, when I was on TV, like on Saturdays and Mondays, from one, you know, basically one full day of shooting, I was on like 8 shows. So it was great. It was good money. I only went in once every 3 weeks. When it went to Raw, over to Raw from Primetime, all of a sudden I was traveling all the time, and it really restricted the rest of my career. I couldn't. There were certain plays in New York City that were going on that I felt I was right for, that I couldn't audition for, or I even had to turn down some job offers. And so it actually came to a point where I didn't re-sign with WWF that last contract period before everybody booked off to WCW. And when I did get the call, which kind of came late, to go to WCW, I was already kind of preoccupied with a couple of projects. So now the question, your original question, to try to address that, I probably would not have. Again, you know, even though I was a wrestling fan growing up, I wasn't a wrestler. And that job, it wasn't like I went out and applied for a job to be a manager or anything like that with wrestling. In wrestling, it was an acting job that came up that I was offered that was, you know, I would not trade places with anybody for anything. That was such a great experience, and I met some great people. But I probably would have still turned it down because I had some theater success, and I started writing, and I wrote a play that went off Broadway, and that was really helpful to what I'm doing now. I don't think I would have done it even knowing what I know now. I don't think I would have done it. Not that there didn't come a time that I would have gone back to the WWF in a heartbeat. But I still think that, I don't know. That's such a great question. I think if you asked me that 5 years ago, I might have had a different answer. 10 years ago, I might have had a different answer. It's just a real tough one to answer. I did, I probably would not have had the writing success that I've had that's led me to a place I am now. So I would think at this point in my life, because some of my early writing is now, getting in a position where I'm going to produce my first film this spring. I guess the answer now would be that no, I wouldn't have done it any differently. But probably 5 years ago, I would have said yes.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. Much continued success to you, not only you, but to your son. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it over and back to our host, the bearded wonder, Zane Paisley. Zane, what do you have for Mr. Jamison?
Well, once again, Jamison, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime, really.
Now, I'm friends with you on Facebook, and our listeners can check you out if they go to Jamison, Jameson, former WWF. That's the best way to reach you online. Do you do Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or any of that?
I don't. I don't. And, a couple of years ago, I found out that people in the wrestling community were looking for me for years. And I was just so involved in other stuff, I never really. But I was inducted into the New England Hall of Fame, Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I actually joined Facebook because they said, you got to have a way for people to get in touch with you as Jamison, the wrestling personality. And so that's why I joined with that name. Nobody knows my name, my real name. So yes, I could be reached, friend me, whatever. Happy to talk.
Well, I actually watched that induction ceremony, a clip of that, and your letters that you received. That was very, very funny stuff.
Thank you.
So on your Facebook page, your profile picture is your beautiful daughter. Can you tell us a little about her? I know you're very proud of her.
Oh my God, she's such an awesome kid. She's about to turn 18 next month. She's a high school senior, doing her senior year at the local community college. So she'll be graduating high school in June with like 33 college credits, and she's a straight A student. She's gorgeous to look at. I mean, she's definitely could be a model, and unlike her little brother, has no interest to be on that side of the camera, although she's got big interest in photography and even thinking about ultimately getting a film degree. Likes the movie making business, and she's my heart. She's a good girl. Her name is Olivia, and she's awesome. Easiest kid ever. No discipline required. She's the adult in the four of us in the household. She's like the adult, and me and my wife are like the kids.
Well, and your other child, James DiGiacomo, our listeners have seen him. They might not realize that he is your son. They've seen him in guest starring on Fresh Off the Boat, several episodes of Casey Undercover, a nice role in the Oscar-nominated movie Brooklyn, and as you mentioned earlier, he is one of the stars of the CBS sitcom in its first season, Kevin Can Wait. How did he get started? Did you get him into the acting business? Well, and also, we'll talk about his stint with the Whites here in just a moment, but if you've ever seen the Play 60 commercial with the little kid and Cam Newton from a few years ago, that's your son, James. How did you get started in acting?
Well, I was, I kind of left the business because it was, even though I was supporting my wife and I, it was hard to get a mortgage. And, she was hell-bent on having kids and raising them in a home we owned. Didn't want to raise our children in a rental, which I could never understand. To this day, I don't understand. So I left the business, figured I could temporarily I had a good financial background. I was going to get a real job again, get a mortgage, and then I could get back into the acting. When James came along, by the time he was 3, I was like, oh my God, this kid is me 47 years ago. He could do this right now. He's ready. I could direct him. That's the one thing about child actors. They'll sign toddlers, but they won't sign kids till they're 5 because it's hard to direct a 3-year-old. But he was very directable at 3. Like if they want a 3-year-old, they'll get a 5-year-old that looks 3. And they're out there. Believe me, they're out there. But I was convinced that he could compete with 5-year-olds right then. And sure enough, he got signed right away. I called an old friend, casting director, who was such a sweetheart. She was the biggest wrestling fan I've ever met. Her name was Shirley Sender. God bless her. She passed a couple years ago. But she actually contacted me when I was on wrestling, asking if I had an agent or a manager. She watched me every Monday night. She's just a great lady, and she hooked me up with a manager that she thought we'd have a shot with. And we're still with that same manager today. That's 7 years ago already. He's 11, and he's been working for 7 years. It's kind of amazing.
Well, does Kevin Can Wait? Does it film out in L.A. or is it in New York?
No, it's here. It's in Long Island, which is a bit of a commute, but they make it worth your while. Believe me when I tell you, it's crazy what they pay these kids today. It shoots in Long Island. It's like an hour commute, which I've done worse. So it's pretty good.
Can you tell our listeners how did James get involved with the Wyatt family? For those that aren't familiar with this situation, a couple years ago in a cage match, it was Bray Wyatt versus John Cena, and out comes little Johnny with a lantern, and that happened to be James. How did he get hooked up with WWE?
So funny. I mean, totally on his own. I got a call from his agent saying that WWE called and they wanted the agency's best 8 to 10-year-old boy, somebody who can could learn this very quickly. And that's how WWE did it. Even when I was there, everything was very last minute. They'd have a casting department who would, very last minute send somebody in to play a certain role. And at the time, and even today, James is probably their best client. So they asked us to do it, and it was great seeing Vince again. Like he didn't, everybody had to think that, that's Jamison's son. Jamison hooked him up, but I had absolutely nothing to do with it. So we get there, and Vince is going over what James needs to do, and I thought it was going to be to shoot some promo or something, a quick little thing. Little did I know it was the feature match, and he was going to be in the ring, and it was pretty cool. So Vince is kneels down in front of him, say, "Hi, I'm Mr. McMahon. I'm Vince McMahon, and you're going to be coming into the ring," and blah, blah, blah. And then he looks up at me because he's down on his knees, and he goes, "You must be his dad?" And I said, "Yeah." And he stood up and he shook my hand. I said, "Vince, you don't recognize me?" And he goes, "You look real familiar." And I made the Jamison face, and he nearly collapsed. It was such a great reunion of sorts that he was very warm and gave me a big bear hug, and we didn't have much time to talk, but it was great to see him again. And that's basically how he got it at the agency. And this agency, they've got 200 kids in there, and it was just an honor for me when they asked for the best 8 to 10-year-old boy they had. I think James was 9 at the time; he just turned 9. That they gave it to James, which was really cool.
That is awesome. Now, and you guys have something really awesome coming up here this coming Monday for the New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault. They're doing a big event, stand-up comedy, and James is going to be up on stage. And I know that you guys have done events before like this. I think I remember you've done things for animals in the past. Tell us what they should expect from this Monday night at the Gotham Comedy Club in New York City.
Yeah, well, James has been doing stand-up for a couple of years now. He kills it every time out. He's just such a pro. He's so in control. He doesn't get nervous. It could be a crowd of 200 people, and he gets up and he just does his routine that I wrote and we've embellished and worked on. And he just for 10 minutes rips his mother and his father. It's pretty cool. He's really good. I mean, it's not like anybody is giving him a chance. I mean, he kills every time out, and the response has been great. Certainly helps that he's on a network sitcom now, and people are really, they just can't believe this kid is 11 years old when he gets up and he does his material. So it's good. I tried to get him to do a lot of fundraisers, a lot of benefits for mostly animal rescue. This was a good one. And he's doing a literacy walk for United Way in a couple of Sundays from now. So I try to keep him out there just to, understand that it's a two-way street and you got to give back. And he's a very willing participant in all these things, especially the animal rescues mean a lot to him. We're a family that, has always had 2 or 3 rescues. We have 3 right now. And, it's just important to me that it's important to him. And he's a good kid. I mean, people always say you must be so proud of him. He's so taken the business by storm. But I'm more proud of the kid he is, like his sister. I mean, he's a really nice, ego is in check. It's totally in check. He never talks about his career to other kids unless they ask him about it. And now it's hard for him to go anywhere where he's not recognized. So he's very patient, taking pictures with people and signing autographs. And he's just a really nice kid. I got 2 kids that I thank God for every day. They're the easiest. People saying you're doing such a great job with your kids, but I'm convinced that it's 50% luck. That you get kids that are, just good kids that I have friends that I know are good parents that, go see their kids at rehab or they're going to visit them in jail and they're good people. It's just sometimes luck has as much to do with it as the examples that you set and the love that you give them. I just got really lucky.
Now, last night was Halloween. Did they dress up at all?
Yeah, well, James did. I don't even know to this day what he was. He was in this black costume that had a pump, a motorized pump that blew air through it. So he was like a bounce house. He was all inflated, and he had the black mask that he could see through. So it was just like a black blob. That's what he wanted to be. I don't know.
Well, I've seen photos.
I'm not saying he's a nice kid. I'm not saying he's the smartest kid in the world.
Well, I've seen photos where you guys have been both dressed in the Jamison character.
Yeah, he's been doing that for a while. He does a great Jamison, and I've recently shown him some videos, and he's gone on YouTube himself and looked, and he with such pride, Dad, you were funny. He's a good kid. He likes the whole Jamison bit. It's funny because he'll come running, like we'll be at the studio, and he'll come running into the dressing room, and he'll be like, Dad, you got to come and meet this guy. He knows you from wrestling. Come and meet this guy. Like the studio owner. This guy's a multimillionaire. He was a big wrestling fan, and he's like, get out of here. Your father was Jamison. And I get a kick out of people. I wasn't the $1 Million Man. I wasn't the Ultimate Warrior. I was a little, sidebar to what was going on. And so for people when people remember my character, it's still a kick to me to this day.
Well, I'm not going to try to wax philosophical, but you were something different. In the land of the giants, you were something different. And you were truly funny, and you got to work with the funniest, one of the most smart people in the world of professional wrestling ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Heenan. So, you had the advantage that you got the spotlight on you through that, but you brought stuff to it too. So you were definitely funny, and you stood out. And, for those of us that were lucky enough to watch you in the early 90s, we will always cherish those things. This stuff that you did with the Barbarian,
Yeah. It's funny.
Not the Barbarian. I'm sorry, the Berserker.
The Warlord.
The Berserker.
Oh, the Berserker. That was the best. That was
yes.
That. To me, I think about that. It was like yesterday. The Warlord. I don't know if you remember the Warlord.
Oh yeah.
Came up to me at one of these wrestling shows. It might have been at the induction in New England. But he came up to me. He starts talking about the bit we did together, and I swear to God, I couldn't remember what he was talking about. And then somebody showed me the footage. He was using me as a weight, as a barbell, and it was really funny. Bobby comes by, calls me a dumbbell. It was good. It was great. It was fun times.
Well, I know that our time is running short with you. I know CPA's got one more question for you. CPA, go ahead with Jamison Winger.
All right, so not to sound weird or anything, but I was looking at your Facebook page. And I couldn't help but notice that your son was recently on a TV show of some sort with Mets pitcher Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah.
Did you happen to meet him and talk to him at all?
I did. Great guy. Really nice. I mean, it's amazing. You're looking at this guy. He's like big enough to be a professional wrestler, but you talk to him and you realize he's a kid. He's like well, I don't know, what is he? 22, 23?
Yeah, 23 or so. Yeah.
But a sweet guy who really likes the acting business. I think he'll be one of those guys that when he hangs up his spikes, goes into movies. He's certainly big enough to play, Thor. They call him Thor. That's and just a nice guy. Really took his time with my son, and that was from last night's episode of Kevin Can Wait, the new Kevin James sitcom. My son plays his son, so his face is out there all the time.
Are you a Met fan?
I'm not. I'm a Yankee fan. It's funny. I couldn't be swayed even with Noah Syndergaard in the same way. And Kevin James is like the biggest Met fan that ever lived. I mean, it's Kevin's great too. He's a great guy. He really loves James and thinks he's got a big future. And it's always great to have people of note interested in your son, because I'm sure they'll do a movie together at some point. It's been that kind of relationship so far, so it's all good right now, guys.
Excellent. Huck, do you have any other questions for Jamison?
No. I think that we've heard so much, and he's been so gracious and stuff with his time for us and stuff. So no, I don't have any other questions. Thank you, guys.
Well, Jamison, once again, I'm going to throw out your Facebook handle, Jamison, former WWF, and can people, book you to appear at signings, conventions, that sort of thing through your Facebook?
Yeah, the most difficult thing right now is, like, I just had to turn 2 down, is that my son's schedule, and I'm his guy, basically, is right now is so... It's so booked up, but I certainly, if the time is right, it works out, I'm there. I enjoy doing them.
Excellent. Do you have anything coming up soon other than Monday at Gotham Comedy Club?
He's got a Thursday show also next week, the 10th at Broadway Comedy Club, and then he's got this literacy walk. But that's it. He's the hardest working kid in show business. He goes to school full time. He shoots 5 days a week for the Kevin James thing. And he's got, as soon as he breaks in the spring, he's in another film. he just shot a film this summer that should be out by next spring. So we're just, it's a lot of red carpets and screenings and premieres and a lot of press now he's got to do. So it's just like, I don't know which way to turn some days, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. The kid has done more in the last 3 years than I did in 15.
And before we go, can you give us a sneak peek on the film that you're producing, you said coming up in the spring?
Yeah, it's a great film. It's called Heads and Tails. It was an award-winning short film that my buddy, the writer, rewrote as a feature film now, and it's James is playing the younger brother. We have yet to cast the older brother, but it's a Christmas film about these two boys lose their parents, and the older brother is a medical student. He drops out of medical school to raise his brother and take over the family business, which is a fish store. And it's full of, very warm and fuzzy moments and some really hysterical moments. It's a bit sad, but it's one of those nice, comfortable films that you leave the theater with a big heart. It's really, really beautifully written, and we're anxious to get it going.
Well, please keep us updated on that because we'd love to have you back on. And also, CPA, you need to send your headshot over to Jamison. You might be the perfect older brother. You never know. So
let's go.
I just sent you a friend request. I think the Abominable CPA and Jamison might have a very natural kinship to them, and
that's awesome. All right, cool.
Hopefully I can talk to my people, can talk to your people. We can get something going.
You got it.
Well, Jamison Winger, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
And
we really appreciate it.
Bud, anytime.
And you have
an awesome guy. We'll talk soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And once we get this edited down, I will send it over to your Facebook page for you, okay?
Sounds great. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. And I think that CPA has left us. He had some important accounting to take care of. So
I'm still here, but I just wanted to say goodbye to you guys before I headed out.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Abominable CPA, for being our first guest co-host. We really appreciate it and love to have you on again. Can you go ahead and plug what you've got going on coming up soon?
Again, I'm at all the regular social media sites at CPA Wrestles. Hold on, I gotta check the dates again because I have. Okay. November 17th, I'm gonna be in Hicksville, New York at Creative Pro. I think the site is creativeprowrestling.com. November 19th and 20th, I'm gonna be at Wrestle Pro. We're going to be in Rahway, New Jersey and Newark, New Jersey, respectively, and you can check out the info for that at WrestleProOnline.com. And
do you know who your opponents are coming up? Because you've wrestled some big names through WrestlePro.
Yeah, I don't think the paperwork has been cleared on the November 19th match yet, but I know on November 17th, I think Kip Stevens and I are in a 4-way tag match involving Dan Moth and Monster Mac, the Hit Squad, so that should be entertaining if nothing else. So be there for that. I'm really excited for that and horrified, but excited all the same.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight, CPA, and everybody check him out at CPA Wrestles.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Will. It's been a fun first show. But before we go, I've got a big question for you this week.
Okay, let's hear it, Zane, because I got a bone to pick with you already.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you pick your bone with me before we continue?
We were on the air 20 minutes before you brought up that chicken shit Drew Skills. Can we please have a Drew Skills free show? I'm tired of y'all stealing my thunder, man.
He is a friend of the show. And he's going to be wrestling at an event that I'm announcing at. So of course I got to put him over, and he's in the main event. So
Yeah. You didn't have to put him over. We could have lived the rest of our lives and not heard anything about Drew Skills on Tuesday.
oh man. Wait until his schedule frees up, and we'll have him on. You guys can duke it out. I'm still waiting to see Drew Skills versus William Huckabee match.
Me too, man. I feel like he keeps getting me banned from the state of Indiana. I'm telling you.
All right. Well, my big question of the week, and Killer Kev, if you want to chime in on it, you can as well. My theory, and please, Will, tell me if I'm wrong. I know you have friends in this, so that's why I wanted to ask you first. My theory is that the WWE Cruiserweight division is broken. What can they do to fix it?
Man, I think I don't want to say it's broken. I think that the idea of the Cruiserweight division is a great idea. It gives such a great look to guys who are not 6 feet tall, 240 pounds. I think that the creative team has seen these guys, and they don't know what to do with guys that they had nothing to do with creating, if that makes sense to you, Zane. The guys, the main guys, the Cruiserweight division now in WWE, these are guys who came from the Indies, who already had names, who already had gimmicks, if that's what you want to call it. And you bring the WWE, and now the creative team actually has to be creative and do something with these guys. And I think that they're lost for words. I don't think that they know what to do with guys that they didn't create.
Okay. So how do they fix that?
I think that they fix it. I think that's a situation where you need one guy in charge of that division. That's one of those, the old saying, too many cooks ruins the soup. I think that's the same thing with the Cruiserweight division. I think that they have a really good recipe for a really great soup, but you can't have all of these different people trying to add their own little special twist to it to make it great, because now it's going to turn out shitty. I think that they just need to have one. I mean, with the amount of talent that they have at WWE, and like CTA said earlier, they have the greatest minds in professional wrestling working for them right now. Just give one guy the reins. Just say, hey, look, this is your baby. We're gonna put you in charge of the Cruiserweight division. Let's see what you can do with it. Of course, like you said, I have friends of mine who are members of the Cruiserweight division. First and foremost, Cedric Alexander, who I love seeing, on Raw, on NXT. Love hearing about him, tearing it up on house shows and stuff. These guys are already great. They've made a name for themselves in the indies. TJ Perkins has been wrestling just as long, if not longer, than John Cena. He's been wrestling since he was 14 years old, and I want to say that he's 32. This guy has 18 years of experience wrestling around the world. Just let him be him. You have former WWE stars, Brian Kendrick, who should be the leader of the Cruiserweight division, especially backstage and stuff, and he should be the guy. Him and TJ Perkins should be the guys, molding the younger talent and stuff. When you have guys like Jamie Noble and Brian Danielson, or Christopher, Daniel Bryan on the roster and stuff, and they're such great cruiserweights. You have Sami Zayn, who's a great, he's not considered a cruiserweight, he works the cruiserweight Lucha Libre style. When you have these guys, not only on the active roster, but working backstage, give them the reins. I would love to see a cruiserweight division booked by Jamie Noble, who I've met several times and stuff, and who is an amazingly awesome person and stuff. I would love to see what he could do with these guys. If they want to turn the cruiserweight division around, in my opinion, just let these guys be guys. Just let them wrestle, let them do what they do. You have a great group of very talented wrestlers. Just let them all vie for a title. There doesn't have to be a storyline. These guys are just competitors. It should be WWE's version of the X Division.
Okay. As I said at the top of the question, I think it's broken. I think some of the ways that they can fix it, either don't do the purple ropes, don't make it something different. Do they do different color ropes for the women's division? Do they paint those pink? No. Do they do something? Do they make the ropes a different color when it's a tag team match? No. These guys are athletes just like the rest of them. Leave the ropes alone. But if you are going to do the special ropes, then have all the matches in the first hour, like they did for Nitro. Have a cruiserweight hour. Make it that. And you said that they don't need to have storylines. Well, I think that they do, because what they're doing right now is they have one storyline over the championship, and the only two people that have been in championship matches other than the tournament, but this is since it's been on Raw, have been TJ Perkins and Brian Kendrick. Those are the only two people that have competed for the championship over the span of the championship's lifetime. So, if they're only going to have one storyline and then they put everybody else in a six-man tag, nobody really cares about any of those guys. So now that it's on Kendrick, have Rich Swann, who's been an undeniable star in that division, have him be vying for the championship. Have TJP go back down to the bottom of the ranks and have to work his way up, or put Cedric Alexander in there to vie for the championship. It's just been two guys fighting over video games, and one guy telling the other guy to let me win, and then doing cheap shots. It's just, it's.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Jay, when I said, like, they don't need a storyline. Like, to make the X division, the cruiserweight division different, it needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to be more realistic. We've already realized with the Cruiserweight Classic, these guys all wrestled, for the opportunity of a lifetime. They've always been told that they were too short, too small, too skinny to get a job with WWE. And so now that they have a job with WWE, I think that the Cruiserweight division should be more, should angle more towards being a competitive sport. It should be more realistic, almost similar to, but not quite. It's different, man. Of course, he wants to do things his own way. Almost like TNA's Bound for Glory series, where every match means something. Every pin means something. How you pin somebody or how you get a victory means something, leading up to the rankings. That's the only storyline the Cruiserweights need is, hey, who's in the rankings, who's not in the rankings. Even at six-man, whoever gets the pin, the winning team gets points or whatever, but whoever scores the pin gets the majority, gets a bigger share of points. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah, no, I think that they need to figure out who they want to be as their stars, because they've only figured out two stars so far, TJP and Brian Kendrick.
You know what, to tell you the truth, I was talking about this weekend, Jay, and I'm sorry to keep cutting you off. Obviously, with Cedric Alexander being there, I was talking to some friends. Most importantly, Lance Lude, who used to be, former ROH star, Lance Lude, and then a local North Carolina wrestler, Rob Killjoy, and we were talking about, the cruiserweight division, most importantly Cedric, and we all basically agreed that Cedric Alexander, out of all the cruiserweights that they have right now, Cedric Alexander is going to be one cruiserweight who is going to shoot off, who's not going to be a cruiserweight for long, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He connects so well with the audience. He has such a great background story. I love how whenever he's in the ring, they always emphasize the fact that, hey, this guy lost 30 pounds to become a cruiserweight. So now you know that technically he's not a natural cruiserweight. Brian Kendrick is a natural cruiserweight. TJP is a natural cruiserweight. Graham Metalik is a natural cruiserweight. Cedric Alexander, the majority of his 8 years wrestling, has always wrestled between 225 and 235. So he's a heavyweight who can work as a cruiserweight. So I think that, we all agree that in the next year or two, you're going to see, if they keep the cruiserweight division around, you're going to see all these guys still in the cruiserweight, and you're going to see Cedric Alexander working more with the quote-unquote main roster of Raw, because even though he's not as tall as a lot of guys, he's naturally a bigger guy than anybody else in the cruiserweight division, with the same amount of agility, the same speed, the same quickness.
I think the best thing for Cedric Alexander would be to form a tag team with Rich Swann and just go in the tag team division. Don't worry about weight classes. Those two guys are stars. They've got undeniable chemistry, and they're great together. So that's, if I were just booking those two guys, I would put them in a tag team and go for the straps. Get out of that cruiserweight division. Another way that I think that they could possibly fix it is to have guys like Neville, who aren't doing much, maybe even Sami Zayn, get a little more star power as far as people that watch Raw consistently that don't know anything about independent wrestling, but are just casual fans, get some more star power to legitimize that division. And then after 6 months of more stars being in there, then, making it all about the new guys. Sprinkle in a little of each. So
I think the biggest blow to the cruiserweight division is the fact that they are on Raw. Having to compete with the John Cena's and the Randy Ortons and everything. I think that is, I'm sorry, not John Cena, he's on SmackDown, but having to compete with the Raw rosters and saying this is the main show, and everybody knows that Raw is the main show. I think that it would have been so much better for the cruiserweight division as a whole if they would have been on SmackDown. There's not, even though there's not as much time, SmackDown usually has more wrestling, and then they have, the talk show afterwards where you can get to know the wrestlers and stuff.
Well, they are starting. They just started the Raw Talk, which is the Raw version of Talking Smack. So maybe they will be able to get out more storylines and get the characters over more.
Yeah, like I said, I think that just like we saw in the early 2000s and stuff, when they had the first Raw draft or whatever, and The Rock and everybody went to SmackDown, and all of a sudden SmackDown became the show to be on and stuff, and that's because there wasn't as much pressure on SmackDown as there was on Raw. I think that they should give a lot of these guys who are just coming, and of course, I hadn't heard, but I could only assume that there's a lot of ill will towards the cruiserweight division, because these are indie guys who all of a sudden are just blown up and stuff, and they're getting valuable time. Of course, a lot of the boys in the back. I think that SmackDown is more nurturing. I think that if they went to SmackDown, they have more time to grow and to work the WWE style and to get to know the fans and stuff. And at the same time, it would have gave SmackDown something different than what WWE has. Than what Raw has.
Okay. Killer Kev, our awesome producer, do you have anything to add? Any ways that you would fix the cruiserweight division?
I honestly haven't been watching it, so I don't know. I figured, from the outset, the way everything was planned, it looked like it was going to be awesome, but yet I keep hearing all these complaints about, pretty much the only star on there now is Brian Kendrick. And everybody else just seems lost or untalented or underused or whatever.
I wouldn't say that any of them are under-talented.
I will say that our hosts on the Raw Reaction, Angry Tenzai and Big Vic, they're definitely not fans of TJ Perkins. They're not fans of Rich Swann. So, I don't know what you do about that, honestly.
Okay, well, we'll have to have them on the Wrestling Nerdcast so we can set them straight about, especially about Rich Swann.
I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to come on the Raw. I'm gonna come on the Raw report and stuff and talk to Angry Tenzai, because I think that people's biggest issues with TJ Perkins is his problem is a double-edged sword. Like I said earlier, is that TJ Perkins has been wrestling internationally for 18 years. He's been doing this since he was 14 years old. He's now 32 years old. TJ Perkins, if you watch him, you go on YouTube and watch his match with Davey Richards and stuff at CWG or whatever. TJ Perkins is so good that the things that he does, he makes it look effortless. He does it so easy, and he makes it look so easy to do what he does. When people such as myself, who are professional wrestlers and stuff, we know that the things that TJP can do is almost sheer impossible for the average wrestler to do. Not only that, but it's because TJP is such a great technical wrestler, he doesn't have a bubbly personality like a Rich Swann, who is all, of course, Rich Swann's a great athlete, very agile, but he's all personality. He comes out and he just exudes confidence and personality. He's like the black version of Eddie Guerrero, where you just want to be around this guy. TJP is very business. He's like a new age Dean Malenko with a lot more technical skills. And I hate to say it like that, but he's way more technically skilled than Dean Malenko was in his prime. And I think that people kind of resent TJ Perkins because he does everything that he does it so well and so easily, and B, he has no quote unquote personality.
Yeah, I think that they need to get their personalities over more than 30-second sound bites. So, all right. I think that this has been a lovely episode, very first episode of the Wrestling Nerdcast. Hope that we weren't too nerdy for our listeners. Please give us feedback. Tell us what you like, what you don't like about this show, because this is going to be constantly evolving. Please, if you are listening to this, go to Facebook, type in Wrestling Nerdcast. Nerdcast is all one word. And like the page, and we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Anything that you need to say before we go, Huck?
Support indie wrestling. My biggest pet peeve is people who will spend $500 at a WWE show but won't spend $20 to go to a local indie show. So support indie wrestlers. I don't get to drive around in a chauffeured tour bus like John Cena. And keep it nerdy.
All right. Well, we will have this discussion in the future because, as I've said to you, I go to the Indianapolis 500 every year, but I don't go to my local races.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.